You were not chosen to live an easy life. And if that makes you uncomfortable, then perhaps that discomfort is the first proof that this story is talking about you. The truth is, this being chosen has never been a reward. It is a responsibility so heavy that if you are not awake enough, you would beg to return to being an ordinary person. From a very early age, you already sensed it. No one said it out loud, but inside you there was always a strange feeling, as if you were carrying something invisible, both sacred and heavy, walking with you throughout your entire life. Your life has never flowed smoothly like the people around you. What others call normal often does not exist in your world. Your falls are deeper, your wounds take longer to heal, and the questions in your mind never stay quiet. You do not just live, you always have to understand why you are living this way. And in the long nights, when all the noise of the world settles down, you have asked yourself, why is everything so hard when I am only trying to do what is right? There is a line in the Bible that has touched many souls like yours, even if you have never read it out loud. To whom much is given, much will be required. Luke 12:48. That line does not speak with comfort. It sounds more like a direct reminder. It explains why you cannot live superficially, why you cannot pretend not to know, and why every time you step away from what feels right in your heart, life immediately responds. Not because you are rejected, but because more is being asked of you. You have looked at others and wondered why they can be more carefree than you. They can do things you do not dare to do, say words you cannot say, live choices that if it were you, your conscience would not allow you to sleep in peace. That is not because you are weak. It is because you are held to a different standard, a standard not written on paper, but carved deep into the soul. And the more you try to ignore it, the more lost you feel in your own life. There were periods when you tried to live like everyone else. You tried to blend into the crowd, tried to lower your standards, tried to turn down the inner voice so you could feel more at ease. But you already know the result. That ease never lasts. Instead comes the feeling of emptiness, of being lost, as if you were betraying yourself. Each time, life pushes you back onto the old path in very personal ways, an upheaval, a loss, a wake-up call you cannot ignore. You were not chosen because you are perfect. You were chosen because you have the capacity to carry responsibility. Responsibility for truth, for light, for what you know is right even when no one applauds. This makes your journey lonely. Not everyone understands what you are doing, why you refuse the easy paths, why you do not compromise with things that seem harmless. But deep inside, you always know that if you lose that alignment, you will lose yourself. There is something few people tell you: the state of being chosen is not permanent. It is not a badge given once and kept forever. It is like a current. It only exists when you are in the right place. Every decision, every thought, every action either pulls you deeper into that current or slowly pushes you away. And when you drift away, the world does not collapse immediately. It simply becomes louder, heavier, and more meaningless, like a quiet reminder that you are off course. You have felt that difference. There were times when you lived true to what you were called to do, and even though you were tired, you still felt meaning. And then there were moments when you compromised, and even though everything outside seemed fine, inside you were slowly running dry. That is not punishment. It is the natural consequence of leaving alignment. The chosen are not allowed to live halfway because their souls cannot endure it. You may have thought that you were carrying too much, that if you let go of some responsibility, life would be easier to breathe. But deep down, you also know that if you let go completely, you would no longer be you. What pulls you forward is not ambition, but a quiet and determined calling. It does not allow you to stay too long in mediocrity, and it does not allow you to hide too long in fear. This story is not told to make you proud. It is told to keep you awake, because on the path of the chosen, there are things that quietly wear you down, not loud, not obvious, but strong enough to make you lose your place if you do not recognize them in time. They do not arrive as open enemies, but as habits, as familiar thoughts, as relationships that seem harmless. And only when you are honest with yourself can you truly see them. Right now, if you are still listening, that is not by accident. Something in you recognizes that this is not just a general story. It is calling the exact feelings you have carried for too long without knowing what to name them. And this is only the beginning. Before you can protect what sacred thing has been entrusted to you, you need to look straight at the truth about the path you are walking and what is waiting along that path. You did not choose yourself, and that is exactly what makes everything serious. If this were only a personal decision, you would have given up long ago. You would have turned away each time the path became too narrow, too steep, too lonely. But that calling does not leave. It does not shout. It does not force. It simply remains, quietly present, like a truth that cannot be erased. You can delay it, you can pretend not to hear it, but you cannot make it disappear. And the more you run, the more clearly you understand one thing. Something in you was born to serve a purpose greater than yourself. From very early on, life began teaching you lessons that others only learn when it is already late. You learned about loss when you were too young, learned about responsibility when your friends were still carefree, learned about silence while others were being loud. No one called it training, but you felt it. Every challenge did not arrive by accident, and every time you thought you could not endure anymore, you somehow remained standing. Not because you are tougher than others, but because you are being prepared. You carry an intuition that many people do not understand. You sense things before they happen, recognize changes in people before they speak, and sometimes know that a door is about to close even when everything still seems calm. This does not make you feel special. On the contrary, it makes you tired, because knowing more means you cannot live superficially. You cannot pretend to be innocent when your soul has already recognized the truth. There are times when you wonder if you are imagining everything, whether the feeling of being called, guided, placed at these difficult crossroads is just a product of the mind. But then life answers in its own way. Every time you step away from that path, things begin to fall out of order. Not immediately, but clearly enough for you to notice. And when you return, even though it is still difficult, things slowly find their rhythm again. That is not coincidence. That is alignment. In rare moments when you allow yourself to stop and listen more deeply, there is an ancient line that seems to echo in your mind, whether you name it or not. Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. Psalm 119, 105. That light does not make the road less rough, but it lets you know you are not walking in darkness. And the chosen do not need an easy road. They need a true one. The truth is, you are not called to accumulate power, fame, or admiration. You are called to hold a position that if you leave it, there will be a space no one else can fill. Your role may look very different from what the world celebrates. It may be healing, guiding, keeping the flame alive, speaking what no one dares to say. And it may also be simply living rightly in a world that is becoming more and more comfortable with compromise. What makes you different is not that you are above anyone, but that more is required of you from yourself. You cannot say everyone does it to comfort yourself. You cannot blame circumstances for too long. Each time you try, something inside you stirs, like a reminder that does not allow you to escape. The chosen are not given the right to be irresponsible, and that is why sometimes you wish you did not know so much. Your loneliness does not always come from having no one beside you. Often, It comes from having no one who truly understands what you are carrying. You can smile, talk, work like everyone else, but inside there is still a quiet space that few ever touch. That space is not emptiness. It is the place where you and the sacred meet, and because of that, you are drawn to stillness more than others. There are seasons when you feel like you are being tested constantly, without time to breathe between upheavals. But if you look closely, you will see a pattern repeating. Each challenge targets a different layer within you: patience, honesty, humility, or courage. No challenge is random, and no crack is meaningless. Each crack opens more space for light to enter, if you do not seal it shut with bitterness. You were not chosen to be perfect, but to be faithful to the truth. Faithful even when no one is watching. Faithful even when the reward does not come right away. Faithful even when you must walk a very long stretch without seeing results. This causes many to give up, but you do not. Not because you are stronger, but because you cannot turn away from what you have recognized. And if right now you feel these words are calling the exact name of your journey, understand that this is not flattery. This is a reminder that the path you are walking has meaning, but it is also full of risk. Before speaking about what could pull you away from this position, you need to clearly understand the nature of the calling that is holding you here, because only when you know what you are carrying can you be awake enough to protect it. There is something you rarely name, but it is always present in every decision you make, an invisible covenant. It is not signed by hand. There is no paper or ink or witnesses, yet it binds you more tightly than any promise ever spoken. That covenant was carved into your soul very early on, even before you understood who you were. And from the moment you became aware, life has continually brought you back to that covenant, whether you wanted to or not. You have tried to live as if that covenant did not exist. You have thought that if you ignored it, life would be lighter, with less responsibility, less pain. But every time you did, you felt a very clear sense of misalignment. Not the kind of loud mistake that makes everything collapse immediately, but a quiet, lingering loss of direction that makes every joy feel dull. That is the sign of a soul drifting away from a promise it once accepted. This covenant does not promise you an easy life. It does not guarantee that you will always be understood, recognized, or protected from hurt. The only thing it guarantees is meaning. That your life, no matter how difficult, is not meaningless. That every time you rise after a fall, every time you choose what is right instead of what is convenient, you are bringing that covenant back to life. And every time you betray it, even in silence, you feel the price that must be paid. There is a psalm once written for souls like yours. Even if you have only heard it echo within and never spoken it aloud, the Lord reveals his covenant to those who fear him. Psalm 25:14. The covenant is not revealed to everyone. It is only unveiled to those who are awake enough to sense it, humble enough to listen, and brave enough to carry it. And once you have seen it, you cannot pretend you never knew. You begin to realize that the gifts you carry are not meant to serve your ego. They are not meant to make you feel above others, but to serve something greater than yourself. Your intuition, your sensitivity, your ability to see what others overlook, all of them come with an unspoken demand: use them for the right purpose. No one forces you, but your own soul will not let you rest if you misuse them. There are moments when you find yourself facing very small choices that seem harmless. A word that can bend the truth to make life easier. An action that can bring personal benefit while silently harming someone else. For many people, these choices are not worth worrying about. But for you, each time, a deep unease rises inside that is hard to explain. That is the covenant speaking. It does not allow you to live divided. It does not allow you to compromise without cost. Perhaps that is why you often feel held to a higher standard, not because someone is watching you, but because you cannot deceive yourself. The chosen are not given the privilege of irresponsibility. You cannot say everyone does it and walk away. You know that every action you take carries weight, whether large or small, and that is both a burden and a reminder that your life matters. In moments of exhaustion, you have wondered whether you could let everything go, whether you could live a quieter life if you stopped caring about this covenant. But deep inside, you also know that if you did, you would lose the most precious thing, your own integrity. You might exist, but you would no longer truly live. And your soul, having already tasted meaning, would not accept that emptiness. Perhaps right now, as you are listening to these words, you feel a familiar resonance, as if someone is speaking what you have known for a long time but never named. If that is true, do not rush past it. Allow yourself to pause for a moment, to leave a mark, a thought, a sentence from your own experience, not to prove anything, but to confirm to yourself that you are present. And if you feel that you do not want to walk this path alone, stay, keep listening, as a way of keeping that covenant alive. The sacred covenant does not demand that you be perfect. It only asks that you be honest with the light you carry, with the darkness you are learning to face, and with the path you know you cannot avoid. When you live this way, even when you stumble, you are still in the flow. And that flow, even when it slows, always carries you back to the right place. But right here, another truth begins to reveal itself. Not everyone who is chosen keeps the covenant to the end. There are things very subtle, very familiar, that can pull you out of the flow without you realizing it until you have gone quite far. They do not arrive as disasters, but as habits, as emotions, as thoughts that sound reasonable. And if you do not recognize them, you can lose the alignment you have worked so hard to protect. That is why you need to look directly at what is threatening your journey. Not to be afraid, but to stay awake, because the chosen are not defeated by enemies outside, but often lose their way because of what is within. And only when you are honest enough to see these things can you continue walking without losing yourself. You begin to recognize a paradox that not everyone has the courage to admit. What blesses you is also what weighs on you. The deeper you walk this path, the clearer it becomes that being chosen does not mean being shielded from pain. On the contrary, it seems you are placed into circumstances where you are forced to grow faster, deeper, and sometimes in solitude, not because you are abandoned, but because there are lessons that can only be learned in silence. You have felt that you do not fully belong anywhere, not completely blending into the crowd, yet not separated from the world either. You stand at a strange boundary, where you can see both light and shadow in people, in systems, and in yourself. This makes it hard for you to live simply. You cannot trust easily, but you also cannot easily turn away. You understand too much to be carefree, and feel too deeply to be indifferent. That is the cost of awareness. There are times you wish you could be more innocent, less sensitive, less aware of what others do not see. But if you are honest with yourself, you also know that if you lost that, you would lose your direction entirely. What exhausts you is also what guides you. What hurts you is also what keeps you from drifting into falsehood. Blessing and burden are not separate, they grow together. You carry an invisible responsibility that outsiders cannot see. That responsibility is not to save the whole world, but to keep the light from going out in dark places. Sometimes that responsibility is simply refusing to lie when everyone else chooses silence. Sometimes it is refusing to retaliate when you have every reason to do so. And sometimes that responsibility is having the courage to walk away, even when your heart still lingers, because staying would cause you to lose yourself. There are nights when you feel exhausted, not from work, but from carrying too many emotions, too many thoughts, with nowhere to place them. You have felt strong, and then moments later felt so fragile that a single word could shake you. Yet it is in those moments of weakness that you begin to understand that your strength does not lie in feeling no pain, but in refusing to let pain turn you into someone else. There is a psalm that speaks softly, yet deeply enough to reach souls carrying burdens like yours. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. Psalm 34:18. It does not promise that pain will disappear immediately. It only says that you are not alone in that pain. And sometimes, knowing you are not abandoned is enough to take one more step forward. You begin to understand that your loneliness is not a sign of failure, but a space for refinement. When everything around you is quiet, your true motives become clear. You see that you do what is right, not because you are praised, but because you cannot bear not to. You see that you choose the narrow path, not because it is noble, but because the wide path leaves you empty. Those choices quietly shape you, little by little. There are people who come into your life drawn to your presence, but they do not stay long. Not because you are not enough, but because the frequencies are different. You no longer have patience for pretense, for shallow conversations, for relationships that exist only to fill emptiness. This causes others to see you as distant, cold, or hard to approach. But you know that if you trade honesty to be liked, you will lose something far more important. The farther you go, the more you realize that the chosen do not live by passing emotions. You learn to slow down, to observe more carefully, and to avoid reacting too quickly. You understand that every action you take, no matter how small, carries an impact beyond what you can see. And because of that, you no longer allow yourself to live carelessly, not out of fear, but out of respect for what has been entrusted to you. At times, that burden makes you wonder if you are asking too much of yourself. But every time you try to lower the standard, you feel yourself losing direction, as if your soul refuses to live below what it has been called to. The chosen may grow tired, may doubt, but they cannot fully turn away from the truth that has awakened within them. Your blessing is not found in having an easy life, but in having a meaningful one. And that meaning does not come from grand moments, but from a chain of small, steady choices that often go unseen. Each time you choose not to betray yourself, you keep the inner flame alive. Each time you rise after a fall without becoming bitter, you step deeper into your path. It is here that you begin to see another truth clearly. Not every challenge comes from the outside. There are dangers without clear shape, without immediate pain, yet powerful enough to pull you off course if you are not awake. They do not attack with force, but with comfort, with habit, with thoughts that sound reasonable. And if you do not recognize them in time, you can lose the alignment you paid a very high price to achieve. That is when you must learn to distinguish which burdens help you grow and which burdens do not belong to you, because not everything heavy is yours to carry, and not everything familiar is right. The chosen are tested not only by pain, but also by very subtle temptations, strong enough to make them forget why they began in the first place. There comes a moment in your journey when everything becomes very clear, even though it is not comfortable at all. That is when you realize that the issue is no longer whether you are chosen or not, but where you are standing in relation to what has chosen you. The difference between those two is alignment. When you are in the right place, no matter how strong the headwinds blow, you still feel an inner axis holding you steady. But when you drift, even slightly, everything begins to shake in a way that feels very familiar. You have lived through that feeling. There were seasons when you did everything right by external standards. No one could criticize you, yet inside you felt empty and exhausted. And then there were times when you had to pay a price, had to lose something, had to walk through very narrow passages, yet strangely, you felt more at peace. That is not a paradox. That is the sign of whether you are living in or out of alignment with your covenant. Alignment is not a fixed state. It is not something you achieve once and keep forever. It is like keeping balance while walking on a wire. Every day, every choice, every reaction can tilt you to one side. The chosen are not allowed to live by momentum because their souls are too sensitive to endure prolonged misalignment. When you drift, life does not punish you immediately, but it begins to send signals: stagnation, loss of motivation, drained energy, doors naturally closing without clear explanation. Some people call that bad luck. Some think they are being tested unfairly. But you, at some level, always know the truth. You know that something is not aligned, and the more you try to ignore that feeling, the farther you feel from yourself. Alignment is not loud, but when it is gone, you cannot confuse it with anything else. It is often at this point that a sacred mark appears in your life, not as superstition, but as a symbolic reminder. The number 444. You may have seen it on a clock, on a receipt, in very ordinary moments. 444 is not a promise of ease. It is a symbol of solid foundations and divine protection. It reminds you that you stand firm only when your life is built on the right foundation, not the foundation of recognition, but the foundation of honesty with your covenant. 444 appears when you need to return to your axis, when you have gone far enough to begin forgetting why you started, when you are standing before a choice that may make you safer on the outside but emptier on the inside. This number does not force you to do anything. It simply stands there like a marker, reminding you that if you build your life on the wrong foundation, no matter how high the walls rise, they will eventually collapse. You begin to understand that alignment does not require you to be perfect, but it does require you to be honest. Honest about your motives, honest about why you say yes or say no, honest about what you are avoiding. The chosen are not allowed to live on justification for too long. Each time you convince yourself that just this once, you feel a very small crack inside. And if those cracks are not repaired, they will become gaps. There is a psalm that often echoes when you need to pause and ask yourself, where you are standing, be still, and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. Stillness here is not escape, but return. A return to the axis, to the foundation, to the truth unwarped by fear or ambition. When you are still enough, you will know whether you are aligned or not. No one else can tell you that. You also begin to realize that your alignment does not affect only you. When you live rightly, your presence naturally brings order to chaotic spaces. When you live misaligned, the disturbance spreads as well. Even if you do not intend it, the chosen do not live completely separate lives. Whether you are silent or speaking, the way you live is still saying something to the world around you. There are days when keeping yourself aligned feels like exhausting work. You see others living loosely, thinking less, questioning less, and you wonder why you cannot be like that. But then you remember that if you lived that way, you would no longer hear the calling that led you here. Alignment does not allow you to numb your conscience, but it also does not abandon you in your fatigue. Each time you choose to return, even late, you are received. 444 does not appear to make you feel special. It appears to remind you that you are protected when you stand on the right foundation, but that protection does not work if you deliberately build crooked. No number, no sign can replace honesty and inner discipline. A foundation is strong only when you place each brick correctly, day after day. If you are listening and feel that this number touches something in you, remember it as a personal reminder, without display. And if you are willing, you can share which number in your journey has ever made you stop and think, not to prove anything, but to acknowledge that you are paying attention. That attention is the beginning of alignment. When you understand the importance of the foundation, you begin to look back at what is quietly weakening it. Not major upheavals, but very small shifts in attitude, in how you see yourself, in how you think about your role. And it is right here that another danger begins to appear. It does not come from outside, but from the feeling that you are already doing it right. Because when you begin to be aware of your alignment, the ego also starts looking for a way in. It does not appear as obvious arrogance. It appears as certainty, as the feeling that you have understood, have seen, have arrived. And if you are not awake enough, the very thing that once kept you standing will become what makes you fall. There is a very fragile point in your journey where strength and danger stand so close together that they are hard to tell apart. It is the moment when you become clearly aware that you are on the right path. After you have gone through enough trials, enough losses, enough awakening to no longer feel as lost as before, another feeling quietly slips in. It is not loud. It does not announce itself. It does not wear the face of evil. It takes the shape of certainty, and that is where the ego begins to test its place. You do not think of yourself as arrogant. You simply feel that you understand more. You do not think you are above anyone. You just feel that you see more clearly. But the line between awareness and self-importance is very thin. And when it is crossed, even by a single step, the sacred flow begins to shift. Not immediately, not enough to set off alarms, but enough to make the light less clear. The chosen do not fall because of great sins, but because of small misalignments that are justified for too long. The spiritual ego does not arrive to destroy openly. It comes to whisper. It tells you that you have sacrificed enough, that you deserve more recognition, that if others do not understand you, it is because they are not at the same level of awareness. These words sound reasonable, especially when you have endured so much in silence. But the moment you begin to believe that you are the source of the light, rather than the vessel that carries it, the connection starts to close. You begin to feel distant from people who were once very close. Not because they changed, but because you no longer listen to them the way you used to. You listen to argue, to correct, to guide, instead of listening to understand. You begin to classify people by their level of awakening. And even if you never say it out loud, that energy becomes visible. People can feel when humility leaves. And when they step back, you may call it the loneliness of the chosen, while the truth is that you are separating yourself from the shared flow. There is a line in Scripture that is very direct. Without softness, without detours, God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. James 4:6. That line is not meant to frighten you, but to keep you awake. Divine will does not turn against you, but it cannot flow through a heart closed by self-satisfaction. Grace is not taken away as punishment. It simply no longer has space to remain. When the ego takes over, you begin to use your gifts to prove rather than to serve. You want others to see, to understand, to recognize you. You want results, influence, a voice. And there is nothing wrong with desiring good things until those desires become the main motive. At that point, the covenant is reversed. Instead of you serving the mission is pulled into serving your image. This misalignment is very subtle, and that is why it is dangerous. You also begin to question yourself less. You no longer ask why. You only ask how. How to go further, how to speak better, how to lead more strongly. But the most important question is forgotten. Does this still come from humility and love? When the chosen stop examining themselves, they do not stop immediately, but they begin to walk in circles. And those circles, if they last too long, will make them forget their starting point. At times, you feel that you are no longer being guided as clearly as before. The signs fade, the sense of harmony weakens. The joy in serving is no longer pure. You may call it fatigue or a transition phase, but deep inside, you know something has changed. Not that divine will has left you, but that you have stood in front of the flow with your own image. The healing for this does not lie in belittling yourself or denying your gifts. Humility is not seeing yourself as worthless. Humility is remembering that you are not the center. It is knowing that every light that passes through you has a source. And if you block that source with ego, the light will weaken, not because it is gone, but because the channel has been distorted. The chosen are not called to become great, but to become clear. Clear in motive, in intention, in the way they show up among others. Each time you return to genuine humility, not to appear righteous, but to serve more fully, you will feel the flow open again, not loudly, not dramatically, but truly. And just when you begin to see this inner danger clearly, another lesson follows right after, because no matter how humble you are, if you do not maintain a disciplined rhythm of life, that flow cannot last for long. Ego bends the direction, but looseness breaks the connection. And many chosen ones do not lose themselves because of pride, but because they believe they can pause the work of keeping the flame alive. There is a very common misunderstanding you once carried, even if you never named it. You thought that once you had understood enough, experienced enough, awakened enough, you could loosen your grip. That some habits that were once necessary were no longer that important. That some silences that once saved you could now be set aside. But the path of the chosen does not work that way. Light is not sustained by memory, but by daily presence. And it is right here that a lack of discipline quietly begins to erode the connection. No one loses their way because of a single misstep. People lose their way because of very small omissions, repeated long enough to feel normal, one day without stopping to listen, one time ignoring the uneasy feeling inside, one habit replacing stillness with noise. These things do not create an immediate crisis, but they create a gap, and that gap rarely stays empty. It is quickly filled with anxiety, fatigue, and distraction. You have felt yourself becoming busier yet emptier. More tasks, more information, but less clarity. That is the sign of a soul losing its rhythm. Not because you did something terribly wrong, but because you stopped doing the small things that once kept you aligned. The chosen are not allowed to forget that alignment must be nurtured, not merely remembered. There were practices that once kept you alive through your darkest seasons. Moments when you were alone, not to prove anything, not to produce anything, only to be present. But when life began to feel more stable, you started to take them lightly. You thought you could return later, but connection does not work on delay. It weakens each time you fail to show up, and by the time you notice, you are already finding your way back from far away. Lack of discipline does not only make you tired, it makes you vulnerable. When there is no longer space to filter energy, everything around you can enter. Other people's emotions become your burden. Outside pressure easily slips into decisions that require clarity. You begin to react more than you choose. And at that point, you are no longer leading your life. You are only managing to survive. There is a psalm that echoes like a simple reminder, yet one that is not easy to live by. Commit your way to the Lord, trust in Him, and He will act. Psalm 37:5. Commitment here is not surrendering responsibility. It is the active choice to return to the source every day, whether you feel connected or not. Discipline does not depend on inspiration. It exists to keep you aligned when inspiration disappears. You also begin to see that when you loosen your discipline, Your gifts do not vanish immediately, but they become dimmer. Intuition loses its sharpness. Sensitivity becomes heavy instead of clear. Signs that were once obvious become noisy, not because divine will withdraws the gifts, but because your channel is no longer clear. Gifts are not possessions. They are a flow, and a flow must be kept open. At times you blame yourself, thinking that this loss of rhythm is failure, but the truth is very different. Failure is not in falling, but in refusing to rise again. The discipline of the chosen is not rigid perfection. It is the commitment to return again and again. Each time you return, even late, you are still welcomed. There is no punishment in returning, only restoration. You begin to understand that discipline does not take away your freedom. It creates freedom. When you maintain a rhythm anchored in stillness, you are no longer pulled by every emotion and circumstance. You gain space to choose your response, instead of being ruled by reaction, and that space is what sets you apart. Not because you control everything, but because everything does not control you. The chosen are not allowed to live by passing emotions, not because emotions are bad, but because emotions constantly change. Discipline keeps you from drifting with every wave. It reminds you that no matter how chaotic today feels, there is still an inner axis that does not move. And each time you return to that axis, you strengthen the foundation for the days ahead. As you begin to restore discipline, you also start to notice something else. Not every misalignment comes from within you. There are outside influences, very close, very familiar, that are quietly pulling you away from this rhythm. And if you are not awake enough to see them, you may keep discipline within yourself, yet still be worn down by connections that no longer fit. That is when you need to look again at who and what you allow to be too close to you. Because the chosen do not only need discipline with time and mind, they also need discipline in choosing the environments they allow to shape their soul. There is a truth you can no longer avoid once you have walked far enough on this path. Not everyone close to you is walking in the same direction as you. And not because they are bad, but because their frequency no longer matches where you are standing. The chosen are not only tested by what happens within them, but also by what they allow to remain too close. Relationships, environments, and habits that seem harmless can become very strong pulling forces, enough to shift your axis without you even realizing it. You have felt this before after meeting certain people, leaving certain spaces, or staying too long in a familiar kind of energy. You feel tired in a way that is hard to explain, not because of arguments, not because of open conflict, but because something inside you has been drained. Repetitive conversations, endless complaints, doubtful looks toward the path you are walking. None of these break you immediately, but they wear you down little by little. The most dangerous thing about negative influences is that they rarely appear as enemies. They often wear the face of familiarity. You may call them family, friends, partners, or co-workers. You may justify staying out of loyalty, out of shared memories, out of a sense of duty. But deep inside, you know when a connection is nourishing you, and when it is making you heavier. Your soul does not lie, even when you try to ignore it. The chosen often carry a special sensitivity to energy. You sense things others overlook. You know when a word carries envy, even when wrapped in a smile. You know when advice does not come from love, but from the speaker's fear. And because you know, you cannot pretend not to know for long. Each time you try to remain in those connections, you pay the price through inner depletion. At times, you wonder if you are becoming selfish when you think about setting boundaries. But boundaries are not walls meant to isolate. They are door frames meant to protect what is sacred. You cannot bring light everywhere if you yourself are slowly going out. The chosen are not called to save everyone, especially those who do not want to be saved. Your task is to remain faithful to the covenant, not to sacrifice it to keep the peace. Not only people, but environments also carry great influence. Spaces filled with negativity, fear, competition, and constant comparison will slowly blur your clarity. When you allow yourself to sink too long into noisy streams of information, stories that spread confusion, you will notice your intuition becoming less sharp, not because you have lost the ability, but because you are no longer still enough to hear. Disturbance does not need to be loud to be harmful. It only needs to be constant. You begin to realize that protecting your energy is not selfish. It is part of your responsibility. Responsibility to the gifts you carry. Responsibility to the people you are meant to reach. If you allow yourself to be pulled down for too long, not only do you lose direction, but what you are called to give can no longer reach where it is needed. The chosen do not have the right to waste their energy because it does not belong only to them. There are relationships you do not need to cut off in anger. Sometimes the most rightful departure is a quiet one, with gratitude for what once was. You can love someone without letting them decide your direction. You can understand their pain without carrying it for them. Spiritual maturity does not lie in endless endurance, but in knowing the difference between compassion and self-abandonment. You also begin to see that when you set boundaries, not everyone will be happy. Some people will say you have changed, become distant, even cold. But those reactions speak more about their fears than about your misalignment. When you stop supplying energy to old dynamics, those who rely on that energy will feel uncomfortable, and that is unavoidable. There are moments when you feel you must choose between peace and belonging, between being understood and being honest. And the farther you go, the more you understand that true belonging does not come from keeping everyone with you, but from staying with yourself. The chosen may walk alongside many people in different seasons, but not everyone walks to the end. Accepting this does not make you cold, it makes you free. When you begin to clear the influences around you, you will notice a space appear. That space may scare you at first, but it is within that space that clarity returns. You hear the calling again that was once drowned out. You feel your natural rhythm return, and you begin to attract people, spaces, and opportunities that are more aligned with where you are going. The chosen are not defined by the number of people around them, but by the quality of their presence. You do not need many connections. You need the right ones. Connections that do not require you to dim your light, that do not make you question your path, that do not leave you depleted after each encounter. When you allow such connections to enter, you are honoring your covenant in a very practical way. And when the external influences are finally placed in the right order, you may think you are safe. But at that very moment, another challenge appears, quieter and more familiar than all the rest. It does not come from others, but from your own most private thoughts. Fear and doubt do not need a bad environment to survive. They only need a moment when you are tired to begin speaking. There are enemies you can see and avoid, but fear and doubt are not like that. They do not stand in front of you. They do not challenge you openly. They sit very close, speaking in a voice so familiar that you believe it is your own. And because of that, they are more dangerous than anything you have faced before. The chosen are rarely defeated when they are strong, but when they are tired, you have been there, moments when everything piles up at once, when responsibility stacks on responsibility, when silence stretches longer than usual. It is in those moments that fear begins to ask questions. It does not ask loudly. It is not aggressive. It asks very softly. Are you really on the right path? Are all these sacrifices worth it? Are you truly chosen, or are you just trying to give meaning to an endless chain of difficulties? Doubt does not come to destroy you immediately. It comes to slow you down. It makes you hesitate before steps that once felt clear. It makes you overthink things you once knew with certainty. And when you begin to delay, fear takes another step forward. It whispers, "What if you are wrong? What if you move forward and fail? What if you are exposed as someone who has been deceiving themselves?" These questions do not need answers. They only need to be repeated long enough to paralyze you. You may have looked at others who walk with confidence and wondered why you cannot be like them, but you do not see their sleepless nights, the times they also trembled before their decisions. The difference is not that they are fearless, but that they do not let fear rule them. The chosen are not exempt from fear. They are simply equipped not to remain in it for too long. There are days when your faith feels as thin as a thread, not because you do not believe, but because you believe too deeply, think too far, and see too clearly the consequences. You see that if you step wrong, it will not only affect you. You carry responsibility. You carry people who will be impacted by your choices. And that awareness makes you heavier than others. The fear in you does not come from cowardice, but from caring too much. Doubt is also very skilled at disguising itself as wisdom. It says you are just being cautious, that you only need more time, that it is not the right moment yet. But the chosen learn a painful truth: some doors do not wait. Not because divine will is in a hurry, but because moments of alignment do not last forever if you keep turning away. Some callings, when not answered, grow more distant, not as punishment, but to teach you responsibility for your hesitation. You have felt the difference between fear that warns and fear that restrains. One helps you slow down to observe. The other keeps you frozen even when the path is open. Telling them apart is not easy, and no one can do it for you, but there is one clear sign: healthy fear comes with clarity, even if it is uncomfortable. Restricting fear comes with fog and depletion. When the more you think, the more energy you lose. That is when you know you are no longer standing in faith. You also begin to realize that doubt thrives most in isolation. When you do not speak, do not share, do not allow the light of others to reach your darker corners, doubt grows very fast. It convinces you that you are the only one who feels this way, that if you speak up, you will be judged or misunderstood. But the truth is, many chosen ones have stood exactly where you are standing now. The only difference is that they chose not to stay there. There are times when what you need is not more information, more proof, or more reassurance. What you need is one very small step of faith. Not a step to prove anything, but a step to break the paralysis. Fear loses power when you move. Doubt weakens when you act, even without certainty. The chosen do not wait until they are no longer afraid. They move while afraid, and learn not to let fear hold the wheel. You also learn that not every thought in your mind deserves your trust. The fact that a thought appears does not mean it is true. Doubt speaks a lot, but it rarely speaks the whole truth. It magnifies risk and minimizes grace. It makes you forget the times you were carried through places darker than where you are now. It makes you focus on the possibility of failure and forget the history of overcoming. The chosen are not defined by never doubting, but by what they do when doubt appears. You may pause to listen, but you are not allowed to build a tent there. You may ask questions, but you are not allowed to let questions replace action. Your faith is not always loud. Sometimes it is simply you standing up one more time, even when you are not sure you have strength left. And when you learn to walk with fear without letting it lead, you begin to notice a very subtle change. Not that everything becomes easier, but you are no longer frozen. You no longer allow worst-case scenarios to decide the present. You begin to remember why you stepped onto this path in the first place. Not because you were certain, but because you could not ignore the calling. Just when you think you have understood fear and doubt, a deeper challenge waits ahead. It does not ask whether you dare to continue. It asks how you will use what has been entrusted to you, because there are those who do not leave the path, but distort it by the way they use their gifts. And that distortion, if not faced honestly, can cut off the connection faster than any fear ever could. There is one question this journey eventually forces you to face. Whether you want to or not, what will you do with what has been entrusted to you? Not whether you were given anything, but how you use it each day, in very small choices that no one sees. Because the chosen do not leave the path only by turning away. Many keep walking, keep saying the right words, keep the image of light while inside, the flow changed direction long ago. Gifts are not rewards for endurance, they are a trust. Your intuition, your sensitivity, your deeper understanding of people and truth, all of them carry a very clear purpose to serve something greater than you. But the line between serving and using is very thin. And when you are tired, when you feel you have sacrificed enough, temptation begins to appear. Not the temptation of obvious wrong, but the temptation to turn the light toward yourself. You do not call it misuse. You call it deserving. Deserving to be heard, to be recognized, to benefit from what you carry. And no one blames you for thinking that way. But your soul does not stay silent, because the moment a gift is used to lift the ego instead of lifting others, the covenant begins to crack, not loudly, no thunder, just a very subtle absence of the energy that once flowed through you naturally. You begin to notice that you have to try harder to achieve the same effect. What once came easily now feels heavy. Clarity fades. The joy of giving is replaced by the pressure to prove. And if you are honest, you know this does not come from outside. It comes from a very subtle shift in motive. You no longer ask, does this serve? But ask, what does this bring me? Misusing a gift does not always mean openly harming others. Sometimes it is simply manipulating through understanding, leading through fear instead of truth, keeping others dependent on your light instead of helping them find their own. These things can be carefully disguised as helping, healing, or guiding, but the sacred covenant is not fooled by appearances. It looks only at motive, yet there is a psalm that becomes very clear at this stage, like a question you cannot avoid asking yourself. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my thoughts. Psalm 139:23. This line is not for those who want to look right. It is for those brave enough to look honestly within, even when what they see is not beautiful. The chosen are not protected from the truth about themselves, and that is grace. You can continue on this path through image, through habit, through what once was right. But if you do, you will feel yourself moving farther from the source, not because something is taken from you, but because you have placed yourself outside the flow. Gifts are not removed as punishment. They simply stop being nourished when they no longer serve their original purpose. And the most painful loss is not the gift itself, but the connection that once made you feel alive. Return does not begin with fixing image, but with very real humility, admitting that there were times you used things wrongly, times you let exhaustion and wounds steer you off course. The covenant does not require you to have never failed. It only asks that you be honest enough to return. And returning does not mean becoming bigger, but becoming clearer. Clearer in intention, clearer in words, clearer in how you show up with others. You begin to understand that the true power of the chosen is not in how many people they can influence, but in how much integrity they can keep. Integrity between what they say and how they live. Integrity between the light they bring outward and the darkness they are willing to face within. When that integrity is restored, the flow returns. not always as strong as before, but real enough for you to recognize it. In the end, this journey does not conclude with you being declared chosen. It ends with you accepting that each day, you must choose again. Choose humility over self-importance. Choose discipline over looseness. Choose to protect your energy over comfort with familiarity. Choose to move even while afraid. Choose to serve instead of use. And each time you choose this way, the covenant is renewed, not in heaven, but within you. You are not here to become perfect. You are here to become faithful. Faithful to what you know is right, even when no one sees. Faithful to the light entrusted to you, even when you are tired. Faithful to the narrow path, even when the wide road looks far more attractive. The chosen do not live for a reward at the end. They live because they cannot betray what has awakened within them. If you are still listening to the very end, it is not because you are curious. It is because something in you recognizes yourself in every layer of this story. Not to place more pressure on you, but to remind you why you began walking in the first place. You were not chosen by mistake. You are not here by accident. And you do not need to fear returning, no matter how far you may have drifted. The path of the chosen is never a straight line. It is a series of returns, a return to truth, a return to humility, a return to the covenant. And each time you return in this way, you lose nothing. You only leave behind what was never truly yours.
Grateful that you chose to spend these moments in the light of this story. If it touched your soul, please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell so the next whisper of light may find its way back to you.